Just be clear with your manhaj. طيب يلا. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So you know what? Khalas, we'll do the rest tomorrow. Now we'll take some questions, if there are questions, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, on Ramadan and fasting from the brothers here. Then, if and when the brothers and sisters from online. Wallahu alam.
Someone said pertaining to zakat and fasting in Ramadan. Is it permissible for one to collect zakat money from, let's say, people in America and give it to a country like Bangladesh and feed zakat eligible persons there with the foods instead of money?
MashaAllah. طيب, Bismillah. Two issues. First issue is a domestic person paying their zakah internationally. Is that lawful or not? The best thing and the safest thing to do is to pay your zakah domestically. That's the best thing to do, and that's the safest thing to do. But for argument's sake, if you paid your zakah internationally to a valid recipient of zakah, many scholars have allowed that. So it's nothing that is made up or out of the circle of the fiqh of the ulama. But the best thing to do is to look after the people in your country first. But for argument's sake, you couldn't find anyone. For argument's sake, giving it to a clearly needy people in a clearly needy town or village or country, some scholars have allowed that. As far as the zakat being paid in food after it was collected in monetary assets here, then that is incorrect. That is incorrect. The zakat is to be given as it was collected. So regardless of how much your savings are, if your zakat is $500, $5,000, $50,000, if whatever your zakat may be, that $50,000, $5,000, $500, $50 is to be given to the recipients, one of those 8 classes, recipients of people, as it is. What they do with it, food, freedom, emancipation, different story, right? Food stuff, different concept, sadaqatul fitr. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And as we said before, the importance for the Muslim to take 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day to learn the basics of zakat. And to spend 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes of the day speaking to a learned person about zakat. Yeah, Sheikh, I've learned these basic principles. Can you please just go give me 10 minutes out your time and just walk me through my zakat? This is the transparency. This is the money I have. I have this house. I have this boat. I have these cars. Blah, 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 blah. Boom, 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 boom. Like the rules of inheritance. I have a wife, grandmother, 2 sons, half-sister, uncle from my mother's side. Who do I give? It's very important. Wallahu alam.
There's a lot of organizations that say they're zakat eligible and then they collect money and they feed orphans, etc.
Zakat, try your best to give it to someone who's trustworthy. If you're lied to afterwards, that's not your responsibility, that's not your fault. But it is your job to use the necessary diligence to determine what is a trusted zakat agency. And of course, if there's ignorance widespread with the zakat payer, then there's ignorance widespread with the zakat collector, unfortunately. Ignorance is widespread. So there are people who have good intentions, but they just don't know. And they think that they can just, freestyle the rules. Oh, well, we collected and we pay this people, the employees, then we give them food. No, 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 no. There's no freestyling. Write everything down. Write your verse down. We don't want you to freestyle right now. You can't freestyle right now. It's not a freestyle. It's an album, not a mixtape. You can't freestyle right now. This has to be a structured verse, chorus, song, in order. There are rules. And if you don't follow it, then you have no zakah. Allahumma musta'an. Wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah. You understand the example I'm saying?
Just to be clear, because a lot of these organizations, they would collect the money, or even persons, and they would, instead of giving money to the
Next question. The answer is clear, in my humble opinion. Next question.
And it's just TA from London, UK. What is the best way to do ghusl with all the sunnahs? Sorry, this is not Ramadan. Ramadan. London, Mrs. RA from London. Any thoughts, Mufti, on how to get thirsty in Ramadan? How to not get thirsty in Ramadan? Unfortunately, I drink a lot of soft drinks.
How to not get thirsty in Ramadan. I think it's inevitable to get thirsty. And I think you getting thirsty is intended. That's an aim. Not for Allah to punish you, but for you to sacrifice. And the Prophet ﷺ clearly tells us about the odor of the fasting person's breath. أطيب عند الله تعالى. So therefore, you have to get thirsty. No matter how much you drink for suhoor, no matter how much you try to hydrate your body, how much water you try to drink at night in the morning, you're going to get thirsty, period. You're going to get hungry. You can eat oatmeal, steel cut oats, this, fill up your, Dhuhr time, Asr time, you're going to do what? You're going to be hungry. You're going to be thirsty. That's the nature of how it works. Of course, there are some things that you can do. Minimize your soft drink intake. High fructose corn syrup, sodium. That's a long discussion in itself with regards to drinking soda and soft drinks. Every now and then, I saw in the interview, it was a representative of Coca-Cola. His representative. Not the top guy, but he was up there. He did an interview and he was defending his product. They're saying, Coca-Cola kills people, gives people diabetes, all of that sugar in one cup, blah, 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 blah. So he had a bottle in the interview. He said, look, a cup of this isn't going to kill anybody. And it's the truth. It's not going to kill you. If you have a soda, a soft drink from time to time, but every day, every meal, that's a different story. 2, 3, 4 sodas every day, that's a different story. Your kidneys, your liver, and so on and so on, that's a different story, right? So balance in moderation. We don't say it's haram to have a soft drink in Ramadan. It's, I want a soda right now. I don't want water. But make sure that you give your body the necessary amount of hydration with water and the fruits and vegetables which are fresh and clean. Wallahu alam.
Mr. VT from Bronx, New York. Barakallahu feekum, Sensei.
Victor. Even Victor? Fadl.
When traveling for Umrah in Ramadan, we'll be back from Mecca/Medina after 10 days, layovers, etc. How should someone fast or not fast? The do's and don'ts.
Fasting when you're traveling in Ramadan for Umrah. If you want to keep your fast, you keep your fast. If you want to take the concession and break your fast as you're traveling, you have the option of doing so. It's just that simple. As we explained last night, whatever is best and easiest for you. Whatever is best and easiest for you. Wallahu alam.
With it being busier than normal, fasting, finding places to break the fast, etc.
Inshallah, please make dua. We've been requested to make dua for Brother Saif from Algeria. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to remove his distress, his anxiety. Please make dua for him. Remember him in your duas for Allah to make it easy for him, inshallah ta'ala, and to reward him for his patience and his family as well. Faddal Nafis.
It's even Victor, pertaining to Ramadan, with it being busier than normal, finding fasting, finding places to break the fast, tarawih, etc. What advice do you have for someone visiting the Haramain during Ramadan for the first time?
Visiting the Haramain in Ramadan for the first time, cherish the moment. Realize that you've been blessed by Allah to visit the most sacred place on earth and the most sacred time. That's first and foremost. Cherish the moment. Realize that Allah has blessed you. Number 3, work on your patience. Practice your patience. You're going to need a lot of it there. Number 4, try not to complain about anything. Make that your personal goal. I promise, I make a vow, quote unquote, I'm not going to complain about anything. The food, the bus, the hotel, someone steps on my foot, a lady runs over my toes with a wheelchair, I'm not going to complain once. Just try it out. And you'll see the quality of your ibadah. And bidnillahi ta'ala, how fast and quickly you'll go back by Allah's permission. Wallahu alam. Abdul Hakim.
My brothers and sisters that in countries where it's famine or it's war torn,
War-torn countries, do they have to fast? Fasting is obligatory for man shahida minkum ash-shahra falyasumhu. Fasting is mandatory for every Muslim who falls under the conditions. And those conditions, them being of age, them being sane, them being residents, them being free from illness and sickness, breastfeeding, pregnancy, warriors who have to fight in Allah's cause. If a person doesn't fall under one of those categories of exemption, then they have to fast. Being in a difficult, unfortunately, a difficult situation, war-torn country, it doesn't make a person exempt from fasting. Unless the fasting is going to cause them sickness and illness even worse than what they're already going through. And that falls under the general category of marid, sickness. The children, the people, the men are suffering from malnutrition already. So on and so forth. That's one thing. That's going to make them sicker. All right? So it falls under general sickness. Those who are defending themselves, fighting against the aggression, resisting against the oppressors, they're warriors in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But just because a person is going through a difficulty and a hardship, war-torn, doesn't make them exempt from fasting. Wallahu ta'ala alam. And of course, we make dua for the Muslims in those war-torn lands, in those war-torn countries. And a very unfortunate situation. And none of these different situations are by accident. All right? You look at the different countries in the Middle East and how our beloved country and our beloved government and our beloved presidents systematically destroyed those countries and systematically targeted the infrastructure of those countries. Not we're going after this terrorists or weapons of mass destruction, but they systematically destroyed the infrastructure of the country, right? And the last thing I'll say, not the 2003, 2002 invasion of Iraq, but in the Gulf War. If you look at the U.S. bombing campaign of Baghdad, let alone when they invaded in 2003, 2004, they systematically ruined Iraq and Baghdad, systematically, intentionally. And the reports of Iraq and Baghdad being one of the most advanced, up-to-date countries in the Middle East, after a few days, a few weeks of bombing, they said that it went back to 1920. Think about that. They systematically went after telephone infrastructure. People couldn't even call and speak to people who's dead, who's alive. Electricity, water treatment, hospitals, railroads. They blew up over 100 bridges. So just think about that now. A war is a war. People want to die, civilians, so on and so forth. Versus we are systematically targeting civilian infrastructure and causing suffering and destruction and ruin to the civilians, which is going to ruin their country. And it's going to take years and years and years to get back on track. And if and when they get back on track, they're going to be way behind us. And that's exactly what's happening in Palestine. They're systematically, intentionally destroying the civilian infrastructure. All right, so it's very unfortunate. How did it happen? Why is it happening? What are we as Muslims doing against it, speaking out against it? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Gaza, West Bank, Afghanistan, Iraq, no one said or did anything. They allowed them to just blow the place to smithereens, destroy everything, and then make the sanctions crippling their economy, literally breaking the back of the country, right? And the same applies to this country and this land and here and there. Allahu musta'an. Inshallah, we'll stop here tonight. Jazakumullahu khairan. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam.